A poor orphan girl was thrown out by her cruel stepmother with nothing but the clothes on her back. Left to sleep on the cold streets, hungry and alone. Her stepmother thought she would die forgotten. But sometimes the darkest nights lead to the brightest mornings. Will this young girl find hope when all seems lost? Or is her story destined to end in sadness? Stay with us for this amazing tale of pain, hope, and unexpected love. But before we begin, please hit that like button. If you're new here, subscribe and ring the bell for more touching stories that will warm your heart. Now let's dive into this incredible journey. In the busy city of Lagos, Nigeria, there lived a sweet little girl named Grace. She had bright eyes that sparkled like stars and a smile that could light up any room. Grace lived with her father, Mr. Daniel, in a small but clean apartment near the market. Her mother had died when she was only 2 years old, but her father made sure she never felt alone. Every morning, Mr. Daniel would wake Grace up with a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Good morning, my princess," he would say with a warm smile. He would help her get ready for school, pack her lunch, and walk her to the school gate. In the evenings, they would sit together and do her homework. On weekends, they would go to church and then visit the park where Grace would run around and play while her father watched with pride. "Daddy, will you always be with me?" Grace would ask sometimes. "Always, my dear daughter. You are my greatest treasure," he would reply, hugging her tight. Mr. Daniel worked as a driver for a rich family. He was honest, hardworking, and loved by everyone who knew him. He made sure Grace had everything she needed. Her school fees were always paid on time. Her uniforms were clean and pressed. She had books, pencils, and even some toys. Most importantly, she had love. But Mr. Daniel was getting lonely. His friends and family kept telling him that Grace needed a mother figure in her life. "A girl needs a woman to teach her things," his sister would say. "You should find a good wife who can help you raise her." One day, at a church wedding, Mr. Daniel met a woman named Mrs. Rita. She was a widow with 2 children of her own, a boy named Sam and a girl named Joy. Rita seemed kind and friendly. She smiled a lot and spoke sweetly. When she met Grace, she knelt down and said, "What a beautiful girl you are. I would love to be your new mommy." Grace felt shy but happy. She had always wondered what it would be like to have a mother. Mr. Daniel and Rita started meeting more often. Rita would bring gifts for Grace, small toys, hair ribbons, and sweets. She would help Grace with her hair and even cooked her favorite meal, rice and chicken. Everything seemed perfect. "Do you like Auntie Rita?" Mr. Daniel asked Grace one evening. "Yes, Daddy. She's nice to me." "Will she really be my new mommy?" Grace asked innocently. "If you want her to be, then yes," her father replied. 6 months later, Mr. Daniel and Rita got married. It was a small but happy ceremony. Grace wore a pretty yellow dress and carried flowers. Sam and Joy seemed excited to have a new sister. Rita promised Mr. Daniel that she would love and care for Grace like her own daughter. For the first few months, life was wonderful. The family moved to a bigger house. Grace, Sam, and Joy played together. Rita cooked for everyone and helped all the children with their homework. She bought them matching clothes and took them to school together. Grace finally felt like she had a complete family. "I'm so happy, Daddy," Grace told her father one night. "I love our new family." Mr. Daniel smiled and kissed her good night. "I'm happy too, my princess. We're going to have a beautiful life together." It was a rainy Wednesday morning. Mr. Daniel left home early to take his boss to the airport. The roads were slippery and dangerous because of the heavy rain. "I'll be back by evening," he told his family as he kissed each of them goodbye. Grace was at school when it happened. She was in her math class, solving problems on the blackboard, when the school principal walked into the classroom with tears in her eyes. "Grace, please come with me," the principal said softly. Grace's heart began to beat fast. Something was wrong. The principal took her to the office where Rita was waiting, crying loudly. "What happened? Where's Daddy?" Grace asked, her voice shaking. Rita could barely speak through her tears. "There was an accident, Grace. Your father, he won't be coming home." Grace's world stopped. She couldn't understand what Rita was saying. "What do you mean? Where is my daddy?" "He's gone, child. He went to heaven to be with your mother." Grace fell to the floor, crying louder than she had ever cried in her life. Her daddy, her best friend, her protector, gone forever. She was only 12 years old. The funeral was held 3 days later. Many people came to say goodbye to Mr. Daniel. Everyone said he was a good man who died too young. Grace stood beside the grave in her black dress, holding Rita's hand, crying until she had no more tears left. After the burial, Rita spoke to Grace. "Don't worry, my dear. I'll take care of you now. You're my daughter too." Grace nodded, hoping that Rita meant what she said. But slowly things began to change. The first sign was small. Grace's favorite food stopped appearing on the table. When she asked for rice and chicken, Rita would say, "We don't have money for such expensive food anymore." But Sam and Joy still ate whatever they wanted. Then Grace's school supplies started disappearing. Her books went missing. Her uniforms were no longer washed properly. When she complained, Rita would snap, "Stop being ungrateful. Do you think I'm made of money?" The worst part was that Rita stopped helping her with homework. "Ask your brother and sister to help you," she would say. But Sam and Joy just laughed at her when she struggled with difficult questions. Grace tried to understand. Maybe Rita was just sad about losing Mr. Daniel too. Maybe things would get better with time. But they didn't. 3 months after the funeral, Rita called Grace into the living room. Sam and Joy were watching television, laughing at cartoons. "Grace, sit down," Rita said coldly. "We need to talk." Grace sat on the edge of the sofa, nervous. "Your father is gone. This house belongs to me now. Sam and Joy are my real children. You're just someone I have to feed because I promised your father." Rita's voice was harsh and mean. "From now on, things will be different. You'll help with the housework. You'll cook and clean. And you'll stop acting like a princess." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "But you said you would be my mother. You said you loved me. That was before. Now I'm telling you the truth. You're not my blood. You're just extra mouth to feed." That night, Grace cried herself to sleep. She missed her father terribly. She wished he was there to protect her from Rita's mean words. The next morning, Grace woke up to find Rita standing over her bed. "Get up. From now on, you wake up at 5 o'clock to start cooking breakfast for the family." Grace rubbed her eyes. "But what about school?" "School?" Rita laughed cruelly. "Who has money for your school fees? You're not going to school anymore. You'll stay home and work." And that's how Grace's real nightmare began. Grace's life became a living hell. Every day, she woke up at 5 in the morning to start cooking breakfast. She would prepare rice, eggs, and tea for Rita, Sam, and Joy. But she was only allowed to eat the leftovers if there were any. After breakfast, she would clean the entire house. She swept the floors, washed the dishes, did the laundry, and scrubbed the bathrooms. Her hands became rough and cracked from all the washing and cleaning. While she worked like a servant, Sam and Joy went to school, came home to hot meals, watched television, and played with friends. They treated Grace like she was invisible. Sometimes they would throw their dirty clothes on the floor just to watch her pick them up. "Grace, wash my school uniform," Joy would order. "And iron it properly this time." "Grace, cook me some noodles," Sam would demand. "I'm hungry." Grace obeyed without complaining. She remembered her father's words, "Always be kind no matter how others treat you." But Rita was the worst of all. She would find fault in everything Grace did. "This floor is not clean enough. Sweep it again. The food is too salty. Make it again. You're walking too loudly. Walk quietly like a proper servant should." Sometimes, when Grace was too tired to work fast enough, Rita would slap her across the face. "Don't be lazy. Work faster." Grace would touch her cheek where it stung and try not to cry. She didn't want to give Rita the satisfaction of seeing her tears. Months passed. Grace grew thinner because she barely ate. Her clothes became old and torn because Rita refused to buy her new ones. Her beautiful hair became rough because she had no time to take care of it. The neighbors began to notice. Mrs. Helen, who lived next door, would see Grace hanging clothes outside and shake her head sadly. "That poor child looks so thin and tired," she would whisper to her husband. One day Mrs. Helen called Grace over to the fence that separated their houses. "My dear, are you all right? You look like you haven't eaten in days." Grace wanted to tell her everything, but she was scared. What if Rita found out and punished her? "I'm fine, Ma," Grace said quietly. But Mrs. Helen wasn't fooled. She could see the sadness in Grace's eyes. That evening she cooked extra rice and fish stew and brought it to Grace secretly. "Eat this, child. And here, take this bread for later." Grace's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "Thank you, Ma. God bless you." It was the first proper meal she had eaten in weeks. But Rita found out about Mrs. Helen's kindness. That night she was furious. "So you've been begging for food from the neighbors? You want to disgrace me in this community?" "No, Ma. She just gave it to me. I didn't ask for it." "You're lying." Rita slapped her hard. You're trying to make people think I don't feed you properly. That was the last straw. The next morning, Rita made a decision that would change Grace's life forever. Grace was sweeping the compound when Rita stormed outside with a small bag in her hands. Pack your things. You're leaving this house today. Grace stopped sweeping. What do you mean? I mean get out. I'm tired of feeding someone who's not even my child. I'm tired of your ungrateful attitude. Pack your things and go. Grace's heart started beating very fast. But where will I go? I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem. Your father is dead. I don't owe you anything anymore. Sam and Joy came outside to see what was happening. They just stood there watching, saying nothing to defend Grace. With shaking hands, Grace went to the small room she shared with Joy and packed her few belongings into the bag Rita had given her. A few old clothes, her father's photograph, and a small Bible he had given her. When she came back outside, Rita was waiting by the gate. Don't ever come back here. If I see you near this house again, I'll call the police and tell them you're a thief. Grace looked at Sam and Joy one last time, hoping they would say something, anything to help her. But they just looked away. Please, Ma. I'll work harder. I'll be better. Just don't throw me out. I have nowhere to go, Grace begged, tears streaming down her face. I don't care. Get out of my sight. Rita pushed Grace out of the gate and slammed it shut. Grace stood on the street, holding her small bag, with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. She was 14 years old, alone and scared. The first night on the streets was the longest of Grace's life. She found an empty spot under a bridge where other homeless people slept. The ground was hard and cold. Strange noises echoed in the darkness. She clutched her father's photograph and whispered, "Daddy, I wish you were here. I'm so scared." She barely slept. When morning came, she was hungry and thirsty. She had no money, no food, and no plan. For the first few days, she survived by drinking water from public taps and eating scraps of food kind strangers would give her. Some people looked at her with pity. Others looked at her like she was dirt. "Please, sir. I'm very hungry. Do you have any food?" she would ask politely. Some people would give her bread or fruits. Others would wave her away. "Go away, street child. Don't disturb me." Grace never stole, even when she was desperately hungry. Her father had taught her that stealing was wrong, no matter how difficult life became. One evening, as she sat under a streetlight trying to read her father's Bible, an old woman approached her. "Child, what are you doing on the streets? Where are your parents?" Grace told her story. The woman listened with tears in her eyes. "Come with me. I'll give you some food and a place to sleep for the night." The woman's name was Mama Kemi. She was poor but had a kind heart. She lived in a tiny room with barely enough space for herself, but she shared what little she had with Grace. "You can stay here for a few days while we think of what to do," Mama Kemi said. Grace was so grateful she cried. "Thank you, Ma. God will bless you for your kindness." For 1 week, Grace stayed with Mama Kemi, helping her with small chores and keeping her company. But Mama Kemi was old and sick. She could barely take care of herself, let alone another person. "I'm sorry, my dear," Mama Kemi said sadly. "I wish I could keep you, but I don't have enough money to feed both of us." Grace understood. She thanked Mama Kemi for her kindness and went back to the streets. But this time something was different. This time, Grace was determined not just to survive, but to find a way to build a better life. She didn't know that her life was about to change in the most unexpected way. Grace had been living on the streets for 3 months. She had learned to wake up very early to find work at the local market. She would help traders carry their goods, sweep their stalls, and run errands. In return, they would give her a little money and sometimes food. She was still thin and her clothes were worn, but she never lost hope. Every night, she would look at her father's photograph and pray, "God, please help me find a way to have a better life." One sunny Saturday morning, Grace was at the central market helping Mama Sarah, a woman who sold vegetables. She had just finished arranging tomatoes and onions when she heard a commotion nearby. "Make way! Make way!" people were shouting. Grace looked up to see a crowd gathering around something. She heard someone say, "It's the governor's son. He's here with his friends." Grace had heard about the governor's son. His name was Michael, and people said he was kind and humble despite being from a very wealthy family. But she had never seen him before. Curious, Grace moved closer to see what was happening. Through the crowd, she saw a young man about 18 years old. He was tall, handsome, and dressed in simple but clean clothes. Unlike what she expected from a rich person's son, he was talking politely to the market traders and even buying fruits from them. As Grace watched, she saw a group of older boys surrounding Michael and his friends. They looked like troublemakers. "Rich boy," one of them called out loudly. "You think you can just come to our market and show off your money?" Michael raised his hands peacefully. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just came to buy some things." "We don't want your kind here," another boy said aggressively, pushing Michael's shoulder. Grace could see that Michael and his two friends were outnumbered. The troublemakers were getting more aggressive, and the market traders were too scared to intervene. Without thinking, Grace did something that surprised even herself. She grabbed a bucket of water from Mama Sarah's stall and threw it at the troublemakers. "Leave them alone," she shouted bravely. The troublemakers were shocked and soaking wet. "Who threw water at us?" they demanded angrily. Grace stepped forward, her heart beating fast but her voice steady. "I did. They weren't doing anything wrong. Why are you bothering them?" The leader of the troublemakers looked at Grace's torn clothes and dirty appearance. "Mind your own business, street girl. This doesn't concern you." "When innocent people are being bullied, it concerns everyone," Grace replied firmly. Michael looked at Grace with surprise and admiration. Here was a girl who clearly had nothing, defending strangers because it was the right thing to do. The troublemakers were embarrassed that a homeless girl had stood up to them. They grumbled and walked away, not wanting to cause more attention. Michael walked over to Grace. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "You didn't have to do that, but you did it anyway. That was very brave." Grace felt shy suddenly. "It was nothing. I just don't like seeing people get hurt for no reason." "What's your name?" Michael asked gently. "Grace. I'm Michael. These are my friends David and James." Grace nodded politely. She had no idea she was talking to the governor's son. "Can I buy you lunch as a thank you?" Michael offered. Grace shook her head. "That's not necessary. I was just doing what's right." But Michael insisted. He could see that Grace was thin and probably hungry. "Please. It would make me happy to share a meal with someone who has such a good heart." Grace was very hungry and Michael seemed genuinely kind, so she agreed. They went to a small restaurant nearby. Grace was embarrassed about her appearance, but Michael and his friends treated her with respect and kindness. They talked about many things: books, dreams, and life in general. Grace was surprised to discover that despite their obvious differences in background, they shared many of the same values. Michael talked about wanting to help poor people and make Nigeria a better place. Grace talked about her dream of going back to school and maybe becoming a teacher someday. "Why aren't you in school now?" David asked. Grace's smile faded. She told them about her father's death and how her stepmother had thrown her out. Michael listened with growing anger and sadness. "That's terrible," he said. "No child should have to live on the streets." "It's okay," Grace said quietly. "I'm managing. God will provide." Michael was amazed by Grace's positive attitude despite everything she had been through. "You're very strong," he told her. "Stronger than many people I know." After the meal, Michael asked, "Where do you sleep at night?" Grace hesitated, then admitted, "Under the bridge near the market." Michael's heart broke. "That's not safe, especially for a girl." "I don't have a choice," Grace said simply. That night, Michael couldn't stop thinking about Grace. He went home to his family's mansion, looked at his comfortable bedroom, and thought about Grace sleeping on the cold ground under a bridge. He made a decision that would change both their lives forever. The next morning, Michael went back to the market to look for Grace. He found her helping Mama Sarah arrange her vegetable stall. "Grace, can we talk?" he asked. They walked to a quiet corner of the market where they could speak privately. "I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday," Michael began. "I want to help you." Grace shook her head. "You've already helped me enough. You bought me a good meal. That's more than enough." "No, I want to do more. I want to help you get your life back on track." "What do you mean?" Michael took a deep breath. "I want to pay for you to go back to school. I want to find you a safe place to live. And I want to help you achieve your dreams." Grace stared at him in disbelief. "Why would you do that? You barely know me." "Because yesterday you showed me something I don't see very often," Michael replied. "You showed me real courage and goodness. You defended strangers when you had nothing to gain from it. People like you deserve a chance to succeed." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Let me help you." Grace was quiet for a long moment. Part of her wanted to accept immediately, but another part was scared. "What if your family doesn't approve? What if they think I'm just a street girl trying to take advantage of you?" Michael smiled. "Let me worry about my family. Will you trust me?" Grace looked into Michael's eyes and saw only sincerity and kindness. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll trust you." That afternoon, Michael took Grace to his family's house. She was nervous as they drove through the gates of the massive compound. The house was like a palace, bigger and more beautiful than anything Grace had ever seen. Michael's parents, Governor Johnson and his wife Mrs. Johnson, were surprised when their son brought home a homeless girl. But when Michael told them Grace's story and how she had defended him at the market, their hearts were touched. "Any child brave enough to stand up for my son deserves our help," Governor Johnson said with a warm smile. Mrs. Johnson immediately took Grace under her wing. She gave Grace a hot bath, new clothes, and a proper meal. That night, Grace slept in a comfortable guest room, the first real bed she had slept in for months. Over the next few days, the Johnson family arranged everything. They enrolled Grace in one of the best schools in Lagos. They bought her uniforms, books, and supplies. They arranged for her to live with Mrs. Agnes, a kind woman who ran a home for girls who needed safe places to stay. "Why are you all doing this for me?" Grace asked Mrs. Johnson one evening. "Because God puts people in our path for a reason," Mrs. Johnson replied. "Maybe we're meant to help you and maybe you're meant to teach us something too." Grace threw her arms around Mrs. Johnson and hugged her tightly. "Thank you for giving me hope again." Grace threw herself into her studies with determination. She was behind in many subjects because she had been out of school for so long, but she worked harder than any other student. She studied late into the night and asked teachers for extra help. Michael would visit her often at Mrs. Agnes's home, bringing books and helping her with difficult subjects. As months passed, their friendship grew deeper. "You're incredible," Michael told her one day as they studied together in the garden. "You've caught up with everything so quickly." "I never want to waste this chance you've given me," Grace replied. "Every day I wake up grateful for this opportunity." Michael admired Grace's determination and positive spirit. Despite everything she had been through, she never complained or felt sorry for herself. She was always looking for ways to help others and make the world better. Grace admired Michael's kindness and humility. Even though he came from a wealthy family, he never acted superior to anyone. He treated everyone with respect, from the governor's driver to the house cleaner. By the time Grace turned 16, it was clear that their feelings for each other had grown beyond friendship. They were in love, though neither had said it out loud yet. One evening, as they sat by the lake behind the Johnson house, Michael finally found the courage to speak his heart. "Grace, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" she asked softly. "I love you. I've loved you since the day you threw water at those bullies to defend me. You're the bravest, kindest, most amazing person I've ever met." Grace's heart filled with joy. "I love you too, Michael. You saved my life in every way possible." They held hands as the sun set over the water, both knowing that their love was something special and true. 2 years had passed since Grace started her new life. She was now 18 and had just graduated as the best student in her class. She had been accepted to study at the University of Lagos with a full scholarship. The Johnson family had legally adopted her, making her their daughter in every way. Michael was now 20 and studying business administration. He and Grace were planning to get married after she finished her university degree. Grace had grown into a beautiful, confident young woman. But more importantly, she had never forgotten her humble beginnings or lost her kind heart. One day, as she walked through the market where she used to beg for food, she heard a familiar voice. "Please, madam. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Can you spare some change?" Grace turned around and froze. There, sitting on the ground in torn clothes, was Rita, her former stepmother. Rita looked terrible. She was thin and dirty, her hair was unkempt, and her eyes were hollow with desperation. She didn't recognize Grace, who was now well-dressed and confident. Grace learned from the market traders that Rita's life had fallen apart after she threw Grace out. Sam had gotten involved with bad friends and ended up in prison. Joy had run away from home and never returned. Rita had lost her job and eventually her house. She had been living on the streets for several months. For a moment, Grace felt a surge of satisfaction. The woman who had made her life miserable was now experiencing the same suffering she had inflicted. But then Grace remembered her father's words, "Always be kind no matter how others treat you." She walked up to Rita and knelt down beside her. "Madam, are you all right?" Grace asked gently. Rita looked up with desperate eyes. "Please, miss, I'm very hungry. Do you have any food?" Grace bought rice and chicken from a nearby vendor and gave it to Rita. Rita ate hungrily, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, miss. God bless you. You're very kind." Grace watched Rita eat, feeling a mixture of emotions. This was her chance for revenge, but instead she felt only pity. "What's your name, madam?" Grace asked. "Rita. Rita Okafor." "Rita, I want to help you get back on your feet. But first I need to know, do you have any children? Rita's face crumpled with grief. I had 3 children but they're all gone now. I lost them because of my own wickedness. I threw out my stepdaughter and God punished me for it. My own children suffered because of my cruelty. Grace's heart pounded. Rita still didn't recognize her. Tell me about this stepdaughter, Grace said quietly. Her name was Grace. She was a good girl but I was jealous and wicked. After her father died, I treated her like a servant and finally threw her out on the streets. She was only 14. Rita cried harder. I think about her every day. I pray that she's alive somewhere and that God has blessed her despite what I did to her. Grace listened in silence, tears rolling down her own cheeks. If you could see this Grace again, what would you tell her? Grace asked. I would beg her to forgive me. I would tell her that losing my own children made me understand the pain I caused her. I would ask her to pray for my soul because I don't think God will ever forgive what I did. Grace took a deep breath. Rita, look at me carefully. Rita looked up, confused. I am Grace. The girl you threw out 6 years ago. Rita's eyes widened in shock. She stared at Grace's face, recognition dawning slowly. Grace? My Grace? But you look. I look different because kind people helped me when you refused to. The governor's family adopted me. I'm going to university now. I'm engaged to be married to someone who loves me. Rita fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Grace, my daughter, please forgive me. I know I don't deserve it, but please find it in your heart to forgive me. Grace helped Rita to her feet. I forgave you a long time ago. Carrying hatred would have poisoned my own heart. But why are you helping me? After everything I did to you? Because my father taught me to be kind no matter how others treat me. And because I learned that the best revenge against evil is to do good. Grace arranged for Rita to stay in a small apartment and helped her find work as a cleaner in one of the Johnson family's businesses. She didn't make Rita's life luxurious, but she ensured she had food, shelter, and dignity. Rita worked hard and tried to rebuild her life. She never stopped thanking Grace for her mercy. 1 year later, Grace and Michael had a beautiful wedding. The ceremony was held in the governor's mansion, with hundreds of guests from all walks of life. Grace wore a stunning white dress and looked like a real princess. But the most meaningful moment came during the reception when Grace stood up to make a speech. 6 years ago, I was a homeless girl sleeping under a bridge, she began. I had lost everything, my father, my home, my hope. But God sent angels into my life. She looked at Michael and his family with tears of gratitude. The Johnson family didn't just give me food and shelter. They gave me love, education, and a future. They proved that there are still good people in this world. Then she looked at Rita, who was sitting quietly in the back, wearing a simple but clean dress that Grace had bought for her. I also want to say that forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is strength. When we forgive others, we free ourselves from the burden of hatred. When we show mercy, we receive mercy. The crowd was moved to tears by Grace's words. After the wedding, Grace and Michael started a foundation to help homeless children get education and safe homes. They called it the Second Chance Foundation. Rita became one of their most dedicated volunteers, working tirelessly to help street children because she understood their pain. Grace finished her university degree and became a successful businesswoman, working alongside her husband to expand their charitable work. Years later, when people asked Grace about her success, she would always say, "My father taught me to be kind no matter what. That kindness opened doors I never knew existed. It brought me love, family, and purpose." The greatest victory is not defeating your enemies, but turning them into friends through love. And Rita, now a changed woman, would often tell the children at the foundation, "I was once wicked and cruel, but Grace showed me that it's never too late to become a better person. Her mercy saved not just my body but my soul." This story teaches us that kindness is never wasted, even when it seems like the world is cruel. Grace could have become bitter and hateful because of her suffering, but she chose to remain kind and forgiving. That choice led to a life filled with love, success, and purpose. We also learned that true strength comes from lifting others up, not putting them down. The people who helped Grace, Michael's family, Mama Kemi, Mrs. Helen, were all blessed because they showed compassion to someone in need. Most importantly, we see that forgiveness is not about letting people escape consequences for their actions. It's about freeing our own hearts from the poison of hatred. Grace's forgiveness didn't make Rita's actions right, but it made Grace's future bright. Remember, no matter how dark your situation seems, stay kind, stay hopeful, and keep doing what's right. You never know when your next act of kindness might change your entire life. What did you learn from Grace's story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it touched your heart, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Until next time, keep spreading kindness wherever you go.